Hi, I'm Matt with etrailer, and today we're talking about the Pace Edwards UltraGroove hard tonneau cover on the back of our 2024 GMC Sierra 1500. Now this will be a great option for you if you want the security and the fuel benefits from having a tonneau cover, especially since we do have a locking tailgate. No one's going to be able to access this, and you like the look of a soft cover, but you still like that protection of a hard cover. And if down the road you want to use a ladder rack with this, you're going to have the ability to do that too. So let's check it out. Like I was just saying, this is going to have this soft look to it, and what that is going to be is it's going to be this black vinyl, and underneath that black vinyl we're going to have an aluminum coating. So the actual tonneau cover itself is constructed from aluminum, but that vinyl just gives it more of a clean finish. Now, for putting things on top of here, I wouldn't recommend anything too heavy. Cups are fine if you got some lighter tools, but I wouldn't recommend anything like a sledgehammer. Not that the tonneau cover itself can't handle that much weight, that is more so if you keep on throwing things on there like that, it could damage the tonneau cover and affect it from working properly. What's kind of neat about this too is we can open our tailgate, and that's how you're going to actually be able to open this. But if you have a tailgate that has the ability to open up this first section, that's going to be pretty neat, because if you just want to go in here and grab something real quick, you'll have that ability. But the whole point of this is that security. So the only way to open up this or retract it is to open up your tailgate, and then you'll come underneath here, find a lever, and that lever, if you switch it over, you're here click into place, just give it a little push, and it should open right up. You'll notice the way it retracted into itself, and the way how this works, and it rolls up into this housing, makes it a canister style tonneau cover. So there's a few benefits to a canister style. The reason someone might choose a canister style is it's going to give you more of a clean finish, and it's going to protect a lot of the tonneau cover from the environment. And on top of that, it's not going to block your back window. Some other tonneau covers you can look into would be a roll-up or a fold-up, but the downsides of that is both of them are either going to block your back window entirely or partially. Now, one of the downsides to having a canister style though is it's going to take up some of your bed. The exact amount, well, if I measure from the back of this canister to the front of the tonneau cover, that's going to be about 13 inches, which isn't too bad for a lot of canister styles, but it's not going to take up a complete 13 inches of your bed. You're still going to have that space underneath. So if I measure the space underneath, that's going to be from the bottom of our bed to the bottom of the tonneau cover. That's going to be about 11 inches to spare. So that's going to be still room that you can still use to store things under. And underneath your tonneau cover, there's going to be some drain tubes. And what those drain tubes are doing is keeping water from building up in your canister. So it's going to allow the water to flow through the canister and out of your vehicle. Now that's not going to be the only area that keeps water out. On the back of the canister, there's going to be foam padding to prevent water from seeping in. And on the sides too, where our rails connect, you'll notice we do have this weather strip that prevents any water from seeping through. Speaking of our rails, they are going to be a little bit bulky in design. They do have a smooth and clean finish to them, but the reason why they're kind of bulky, they're going to sit up about an inch. They're going to have this channel that runs through them. And what that channel is going to allow you to do is put on any T-channel accessories. And this is going to be a great opportunity for you if you have any ladder racks that can fit into this channel, because then you'll also be able to use this in tandem with a ladder rack. And one final thing is this handle. You'll still have the ability to use this, so if you struggle with getting into your bed, you won't miss out on that function. But overall, I think this is a really nice system. I like the look of it. I like the fact that you can use T-channel accessories on the back of here. So if you are worried about missing out on using a ladder rack, you'll still have that ability. And it is a really clean finish, especially having a roll-up tonneau or a canister style tonneau cover. As for the installation though, that can be a little bit tricky, and it did take us a little bit of time to do it. It's mainly because some of the instructions are a little vague and the clamps can be a little bit tricky to work with sometimes. And in our case, we did find a couple things that the instructions left out, but that was just our experience today. Now, if that is a little bit worrisome for you, you're not really feeling like dealing with any of that, you can go to our website and find a dealer that can install it for you. But if you still feel pretty good about putting this on, just stay tuned. We'll walk you through how we did it. To start off the installation, we can start prepping our canister. And the first thing we're going to have to do is take off this side panel. And we're just going to grab a 3/8 socket and wrench and remove these 2 bolts on either side. We can now place our tonneau cover by the bulkhead. You can do this with a friend. It's probably going to be a little bit easier, but you can do it by yourself if you wrap the strap all the way around the tonneau cover, grab it at the center, and kind of help guide it. What we're also going to do is place something near the bulkhead so we can rest it on so it sits above our bed rails. You could either use some buckets, some totes, or anything that you have on hand just to keep it elevated. But I'm just going to grab it at the center, step up here, lift up on this, and walk it towards the center. We can start prepping to get our rails onto our tonneau cover. And to do that, first, we're going to have this stake pocket hole. What we need to do is grab one of these covers and just place it over that hole. And you just have to make sure you take off that coating on the back of it so it has that adhesive so it can stick down. What that's going to do is help prevent any water from seeping in here. Now, since we're just doing this for demonstration purposes, we're not going to be using that today, but it's just going to go right over that pocket. Next up, we want to make sure we have the right rail for the correct side. So, when you grab your rails, you're going to notice we have this white strip going all the way down. We're going to remove that white cover, and that's going to reveal our foam underneath. After when you've done that, we want to make sure this is in the right orientation. So, the way this should fit on there is this should really match the contours of our bed rails. So that flat side closest to you is going to be the side next to the canister, and the side with the curvature to it is going to be on your bed rail. Another thing to let you know if you're have the correct one for the correct side is this channel should be the furthest thing away from the bed. We can actually start getting these rails on, and this is going to be a moment where we do something different from the instructions, and that's because our kit today has these end caps. The reason why we have to mess with this end cap is because it's going to get in the way of us trying to slide it on our cover. So what we're going to do is take either a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver, and we're going to come over to the edge of it and start just prying this off. We're not going to be doing this very hard, just going to be applying a little bit of pressure evenly throughout it until it pops off. And with this out of our way, we'll be able to slide this on our tonneau cover. So the instructions are a little hard to follow at this point, but what I found is best is to primarily focus on getting this edge through this channel right here. You'll notice we have a hole at the very end of it, and we're going to have this relief. We want to slide that relief through that channel. And the best way to do this too is when you're putting it on, put it on perpendicular to the tonneau cover itself, and then slide it in place and push. We'll show you a more in-depth look right now. Here's another look at that relief right here at the bottom of our rail, and that's going to be the channel we want to get in. So I'm going to flip this around to the other side, and we're going to be on the outside of our tonneau cover, coming in, like I said, perpendicular to it. That relief right in front of it, and then I'm going to turn this down, making sure that's getting caught in there. And once that's level, something we found to help too, when we put a foam block on the other side that comes in the shipping, that'll help keep things level. And now with it like this, I'm just going to push on it. Make sure that goes through that opening. And our goal now is to make sure the hole on the bottom of the rail gets lined up with the hole on the bottom of this opening. Something that's going to help you too to get that hole lined up is to get underneath that rail and use a flashlight to shine some light on there so you can see if the threads line up. When they do, you're going to grab this rail bolt. You're going to have a lock washer and a flat washer. And we're going to grab a Phillips screwdriver, line that up in the bottom, and bolt this into place. And just make sure you do that on both sides. And with both these rails in place, we're just going to grab that end cap we took off earlier, put it right back on the back of this rail. You might need to apply some pressure, but once you get it in place, we can start putting the tonneau cover and the rails on our bed and removing these totes. So what I'm going to do is grab this strap from the center. We want to make sure this looks pretty even on both sides. Doesn't make contact. And if it does, I'm just going to lift up. Make sure you got good hold of it. Release it. And come over to the other side. Do the same over here. And let it down pretty slow. And we can start kind of squaring everything off. The process for squaring it up is really just me looking at either side of my bed rails, looking at the placement of this, maybe getting a measuring tape to make sure it's the same distance on either side. If it's a little bit off, I'm just going to pull it one way or the other until it's even. Next up, I want to grab up this foam strip, and we're going to place this on the bulkhead right here. And what this is going to do is prevent any water from seeping through the back of the canister. Now, when you're doing this, you want to make sure you remove that paper strip on the back of it. But since we're doing this for demonstration purposes today, we won't be doing that. Just know the way this is going to sit is just up against your tonneau cover. You might have to pull it back some so you get some room to put it on. And you'll probably have to just trim down the edges just a bit so there's no overhang. One of the last things we're checking just to see how this fits up here is to make sure our tailgate can shut. And we're going to have proper seals. So we're going to come over here to this tailgate cap seal, and then you're going to have this bottom cap here too. What we want to do is to make sure that this right here, this tool we have, this part that is the thinnest, is going to be the distance in between them. So I'm just going to make sure that fits in between that seal and our bottom cap. And there's really no wiggle room, so I know I'm good there. I'm just going to make sure I check on the other side too. It's not a bad idea to grab some masking tape too. Just kind of mark out where this is sitting, just in case it gets moved later on when we're putting on our clamps. We're going to come back to the canister side on the bulkhead, and not a bad idea to just double check that foam you have over here. Make sure that's not damaged or folded in a weird way. Making sure that it's underneath this rail too. Once we look pretty good on that, we can actually start putting this cover on our canister. So what we're looking for is, you'll notice we do have these nuts and these plastic housings right here. And you'll notice this has the ability to slide up and down. We want to make sure that's pushed to the very back. Same thing on the one on the other side, on your driver's side. Once that's even, we're going to grab the cover itself. A good way to let you know it's in the right orientation is this side with the brush is near the opening of the tonneau cover. And we're just going to line it up now with those holes and nuts. Just placing it down, moving until we have everything lined up. Once it's lined up, I'm going to grab one of these nuts and I'm going to thread it through. Might be a little bit tricky at first because it does have that Loctite on it. I'm going to grab that Phillips screwdriver and just tighten it down slightly. We don't want to tighten this down all the way until we get both of them on. But once you have both of them on, then you can tighten it down the rest of the way. To start putting our clamps onto our rail so they really seat into place, what we have to do is put on our clamp extensions first though. So you're going to have 4 in total, and they're all going to have their specified locations. You're going to have your front left, your front right, and then you're going to have your back left and back right. So you're going to have these little BLs or little abbreviations on them to let you know where they go. But to put them on isn't too bad actually. Sometimes they can be a pain if there's a lot of powder coat underneath here, but if there isn't, then they're not too bad. So what I want to be doing is coming underneath here, finding one of the reliefs. This is going to be my FL relief. So I'm going to grab my FL extension, and I'm going to start on the rear side with this shim, and I'm going to push it up. And if it doesn't squeeze behind there, I'm just going to pull that rail towards me a bit until it gets around there. And I'm going to push up until this grabs on. Once you have one side up there, you're just going to push up on the other one until it wraps all the way around. And we can slide this freely in this relief. And what we want to do is push this back towards our canister if we're on the back one. And we'll stop just at the start of that relief. Now we'll just come up to the one on the front. It's the same process, but instead of going back towards the canister, this time we're going to go forward towards the tailgate. On the tailgate side, when we're putting our back clamp extensions on, it's going to be the same process, only instead of pushing this in and going towards the canister, instead we're going to push it in and push it towards our tailgate. With all those extensions in place, we can start putting on the clamps. So you're going to have 2 different types of clamps though. We're going to have this longer one and this shorter one. So the longer one is going to go on your canister side, shorter one on your tailgate side, and they're going to have different length bolts too. Longer one for the canister side and shorter one for the tailgate side. They're going to install the same way, so all you're going to be looking for is lining up this channel right here with your extension. You want to make sure this is facing inwards. You're just going to hold this in place and slide it on until it makes contact with this bracket on the bottom. Once it's made contact, we're going to grab the back half of the clamp, push it on, lining up this opening with this more rounded edge here. This can be a little bit tricky sometimes, so you might have to move some things. Sometimes what helps too, that I just found out, is if you just put a lot of pressure from up top, you can get that back half on here a lot easier. And just make sure nothing's moved. You might have some contact with some stuff on the back of here. You just have to maybe slide this out of your way a little bit. Now that everything's lined up, I'm going to come back and grab my bolt, washers, and that nut. You're them right next to each other. And the way this is going to work is this nut is going to go into this divot back here. This bolt's going to run through and connect. And we're just going to tighten this down just slightly, just enough to get a little bit of resistance, and then we'll do that for the rest of them. When all of them are on, we're going to come back over here, tighten this a little bit more, and our goal here is to grab that tool from earlier, and instead of using this thinner side, we're going to flip it around. We're going to have this slightly thicker side, and our goal is to make sure that that can fit in between the metal section of our rail here at the bottom and our bed rail. We just want it to be a pretty snug fit, but enough to get it in and out. When everything looks pretty even, another thing you can do is just measure the distance between the rear side or your tailgate side of your tonneau cover and the canister side, and make sure everything looks pretty even. You can also reference your instructions. They'll give you a set number to kind of go by. But now I can start putting in the kickstand. The way this is going to work is we're going to have the stand itself, lock washer, regular washer, and this wing nut. When we put this on here, we want to make sure that this area right here is going to sit flat against the side of our bed. So you're just going to go over here, push this through this opening on your clamp, cinch it down, and start loosening it until it makes contact. And once you have this roughly where you want it to be, we'll just put our flat washer, lock washer, and wing nut on and tighten the side down. The reason why we want to do this is so this doesn't slide around on us, gives us more of a stable footing. And once this is tightened the rest of the way down, then we'll tighten it back over here. Then we're going to tighten it back over here until our rails sit level with their bed rails. A couple ways you can check that is by just tightening this a little bit, stepping out of your bed, looking down. If it looks level, you're in the clear. Then you just repeat that process on the other side. And we can test how this is all going to work together now. So what I recommend doing at this point is grabbing that lubricant that's going to come with your kit. And the way you're going to use this is you're going to just slide this in under a sweep seal and on top of our wear strip, just between these two rubber sections. And we're going to coat it. Now I'm not going to be doing that today since I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. And another thing we can do right now since we're over here is we can take that extra piece of hook and loop system, and where we're going to place this is just somewhere underneath our rails. You remove that plastic coating on the back side of it, place it right here, and you'll find the rest of the hook and loop system on the strap that you can connect these to each other and place it here. The reason why you have that as an option is just so the strap isn't just hanging out in the center of our bed. But then finally, we can test this out to see how it pulls out. What I'm looking for here is a smooth transition. Making sure I can hear everything click into place and no resistance really. And we'll just make sure it opens pretty easy too, or encloses on itself. You'll find a little knob at the bottom and just push on it. Just like that. And finally, we can move on to our drain tubes. So you're going to have two different types of drain tubes. So these ones with this foam washer on them are going to go on the canister side. There'll be two holes underneath. You just pop these under until they click into place. Give them a slight little tug to make sure they don't go anywhere. You should be good. Now, we're not going to be installing these today because for us to do that, we'll have to make some holes in our vehicle so the water can drain out of, since we don't have any factory holes. So if you have to do that, just make sure you have some tools where you can make a hole in your vehicle and check to make sure nothing's going to be behind it or you can damage something. But I can show you real quick how to put these on. What we're aiming to do is we're going to take this adapter and we're going to come underneath our rail. There's going to be three sections. One's going to have a hole right there. I'm just going to slide this into place till it grabs on. We're going to grab this other drain tube. It won't have any washers on it. It'll just be the same on both ends. I'm going to come over here and put it on. And you can twist it on from this angle. Really, it's a little bit easier to do this if you do this beforehand, but it is possible to do it like this too. Once you have it on, then you'll just route this to an opening that you have. We don't have an opening though, but so you'll have to make your own. Just find some place where you know the water can exit, you won't damage anything behind it. And just make sure you do that for both sides. And to finish it off, we're just going to open it one last time. Make sure everything feels good. What I do recommend though is just kind of leaving it sit like this for about 24 hours, just so everything can seat properly. And now just look at the installation and some of the features of our Pace Edwards UltraGroove tonneau cover on the back of our 2024 GMC Sierra 1500. Thanks for watching.